Let's talk about the Jack Eichel situation. It has finally wrapped up. The Jack Eichel saga in Buffalo is done, and he has been traded to Vegas. Now, in return for Eichel, Buffalo received Krebs, Tuck, first round in 2022, and a second round pick in 2023. Also, to note, Vegas is notably over the cap by 11 mil once Eichel does get back. So there is some serious cap maneuver that Vegas will have to undergo. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but I should hope that they had something, some sort of plan in place when they were going after Eichel. Some sort of plan to say, hey, if we get him, this is what we're gonna have to do once he's healthy and ready to return. And I think they said it was only going to be about 3 months, so they've got some time to either put their plans in motion or figure something out. Let's just hope that they have something figured out for their sake. Now, I saw a lot of back and forth talking about who won the trade. Did Vegas win? Did Buffalo win? I mean, I think Eichel won for sure because he's getting the surgery and the operation that he needs, and he's going to get back on his feet, hopefully in their estimated 3 months. But in terms of the two teams involved, Vegas and Buffalo, who won this trade? If you look at Vegas, in their short time in the league, they have become known for trading away draft picks and prospects. They don't have a lot left, and their prospect pool is not very deep or talented. Having said that, in a couple years, they are going to have a really hard time because, like I just said, they don't have much of a system built like in depth in terms of their pool of players and in terms of development. You look at a team, I mean, it's not the best comparison to compare them to the Leafs, who have this insane development system, but you look at a team like that has this development system. Vegas has nothing even close to that. And although right now it may not seem like a concern because they have their set roster players, they have the older guys, the guys that have been getting it done for them every year since they've started in the league. So it doesn't look like an issue right now, but moving down the line it could even just be a year or two, they're going to be in some serious trouble because you can't build that type of development system in a year, let alone in the 5 years or whatever it's 4 years, whatever it's been since they've started in the league. So they are behind on that for sure. They definitely put all their eggs in one basket. And when I say that, I mean they put all the resources and everything they had into wanting to win the cup now, rather than say, hey, we're a new franchise, we did good in our first couple seasons, but let's, put our foot on the brake, take a step back, and make sure that we're going to be sustainable moving into the future. And instead, they said, we did great our first couple seasons, let's just keep riding this, keep trading things away, keep getting assets so that we can win the cup now. And in doing that, they kind of screwed themselves over because they're not going to be able to sustain any type of NHL ready team come the next couple years. So was it worth it for them to trade away 2 roster players, one of them being a prospect, trading away 2 picks for a player who may not be ready? I mean, like I said, they estimated 3 months, but he may not be ready to play until much later, depending on how the recovery goes. So was that worth it for them? Was it worth it for them to trade something that they had right now on their roster for something that's not going to be there until midway through this season? Was it worth getting rid of those future picks and prospects for someone that may or may not live up to what they want him to be? He's a skilled guy, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying what the view that they have of him and the value that they place on him might be too much for what his potential is like. So then, is that worth it? There's so many things to consider, and there is no way of knowing until it actually happens. So it's a gamble. That's the name of the game. So then, if you look at Buffalo, in my opinion, I'd say that Buffalo won. They got Krebs, who is the good prospect that I was referring to. They got Tuck, a decent roster player. They got a couple picks, which For Buffalo, I mean, you have to look at this case-based as well. So I just described the state that Vegas is in, the situation they're in, and their scenario, their case. I just described that and how the trade affects their situation, which is negative. For Buffalo, looking at it in Buffalo's case, they're going through another, I'm going to say rebuild. It might not be a complete rebuild, but they are going through another sort of rebuild stage. So having those assets that they just got in those 2 roster players, those are good assets to have. Having those picks that they just got, those are good assets to have. And they also got rid of the cap space from Eichel too that he carried, which we know was a lot. So looking at their situation and how they're trying to, they recently blew up their team this past off season. So looking at how they're trying to rebuild around their core, or build better around their core, these assets, this move that they made sense for them. They didn't see Eichel as part of their core, which is clear when they made it hard for him to get what he wanted and they took away his C. That was clear. So why would they keep him? In their sense, that's what they were thinking. And then they got the assets that they needed to continue through their rebuild stage that they're going through. Now, looking back to Vegas, it seems like what they wanted isn't going to align for them. And like I mentioned, in a year or so, they're not going to have any player prospect pool that's decent to pick from. They're not going to have any good reliable picks. So when Eichel is back to playing, and not just this season, like he might be ready in 3-4 months time, but when he's back to his full health and, full potential, I mean, just because a player's ready to come back doesn't mean they are ready to come back. You look at Matthews. He came back when he had his wrist injury. He came back, but he wasn't ready to come back. He wasn't his proper self. He wasn't playing to his full potential until much later. So the same thing's going to happen with Eichel, especially with the type of operation and the type of injury that he has. It's going to take longer than 3 months for him to get back to his normal self. So in saying that, when he is back to playing full strength and full health, back to his normal self, that's going to be the time that Vegas is going to start struggling to pull a team together, because they're also going to run out of assets to trade for more valuable players. The only assets they're going to have left that people want are their actual roster players. So they're going to end up having to trade roster players for roster players, and they're going to have trouble building a system to sustain. So that's what I mean when I don't think it's going to align, because when he is back and healthy 100%, that's when Vegas is going to be starting to slip off I would say in the next year or so. So Eichel is definitely a good player, and he's a good asset for Vegas to have 100%, but I just don't think his play is going to align where Vegas is at in the next couple years. And he said with Buffalo that he didn't want to go through another rebuild. That's why he asked for a trade, or he said he wasn't going to play, because he didn't want to go through another rebuild stage with them, because he had already been through one. Fair. But I have a feeling that he's going to be experiencing the exact same thing or similar thing soon in Vegas, with how it looks like Vegas is heading. So for his sake, hopefully that's not the case, but I really do think that Vegas is going to run into some serious trouble in the next couple years.